let's really sink our teeth into something fascinating today. We're embarking on a deep dive into a truly resonant narrative, a source we've simply titled The Boy Who Never Gave Up. And this isn't just, a feel-good story. It's really a remarkable case study in how transformation unfolds. We're looking at where true determination comes from and what it actually takes for someone to find their voice, especially when the odds seem stacked against them. So our mission today, it's to uncover those profound insights hidden within this journey. Think of it as a shortcut, maybe, to understanding how these quiet acts of persistence can lead to really monumental change, personally and maybe even beyond.
Yeah. And what's particularly compelling about this story, even though it focuses on just one boy, is how it kind of pushes back against our usual ideas of strength, of potential. It's a powerful illustration of resilience, absolutely. But maybe more than that, it forces us to think about how initial disadvantages or, things we see as weaknesses can weirdly become the very place where purpose and extraordinary abilities are actually forged.
That's a really great way to put it, because our protagonist, Liam, he's certainly not your typical hero figure, right? Not at the start. The source paints this really vivid picture. He's the smallest kid in his class, not fast, not strong. His grades, consistently poor, always last in races, barely scraping by on tests. Teachers, the story says, would often just sort of shake their heads. Like he's this puzzle they couldn't figure out. Definitely not a kid you'd peg for success. He was just there, on the edge, barely noticed, a quiet shadow. And his home life didn't seem like much of a haven either, at least on the surface. His dad worked long hours, came home exhausted. His mom was sick, often in bed. But within this quiet, maybe slightly somber setting, Liam developed this habit. He'd sit by his mother's side, reading aloud from old library books. And here's a crucial detail the source points out. He didn't even understand all the words, but he kept reading anyway. It hints at this deep, inherent perseverance that was already there, maybe even before he knew what to call it. Like a coping thing, perhaps.
Yeah. It's an interesting contrast, isn't it? You've got this boy who society, his immediate environment, might just completely overlook. Yet quietly, he's building this internal strength. It makes you ask, right, what happens when expectations are super low, when someone feels invisible, but they have this inner spark, this maybe unconscious drive that nobody else sees? It really highlights that potential isn't always loud or, obvious. It can be this very private, stubborn commitment.
And that hidden spark finds its fuel in the most, unassuming way. The turning point, which the narrative describes so well, comes from a simple school poster. Speech contest. Tell a story that inspires. Liam sees it, and the source says his heart just starts beating faster. It was this new, totally unfamiliar feeling stirring inside him, a desire he'd never even recognized before. Small shift, maybe, but huge. So he goes home that night, tells his mother about it, probably quite nervously, and her response, it wasn't some big dramatic cheer, it was quiet, understated, but incredibly powerful. She just smiled faintly, the source says, and whispered, "You should try, Liam. I believe in you." That single sentence, that whisper, it was like giving him permission, not just to try the contest, but to actually believe in himself, maybe for the first time.
What's fascinating here, if we think bigger picture, is that this moment is this critical fork in the road. You have this invisible boy, used to being on the sidelines, who actively chooses to step forward. And it's driven by this unique combination, right? A flicker of belief from the person who means the most, plus his own internal decision to act on this brand new feeling. It wasn't about pressure from outside. It was internal permission, backed up by that quiet, solid support.
That's such a key point. Self-permission, exactly. And what came after that whisper? 2 weeks of intense solitary practice. Every single night after the house was quiet, Liam stood in front of this cracked mirror and rehearsed. He was telling a story about a boy who never gave up, even when life was hard. He stumbled, forgot lines, the source tells us, but it emphasizes one really powerful detail. Each night, he got a little better. Not perfect, not amazing, just better. That quiet, steady, incremental progress seems central to his whole story. Then the contest day arrives. His hands, the story describes really vividly, were shaking. The room's packed. Students, teachers, parents, everyone watching. Other kids look so confident, clear voices, notes already. Liam feels tiny. But then he remembers his mom's quiet voice. I believe in you. Takes a deep breath. And he tells a story slowly, carefully, speaking, as the source says, from the heart. Talking about falling down, getting back up, being laughed at, but showing up anyway. And that really personal bit about reading to someone you love, even when it's hard.
And the result here is what's really striking. It's the immediate shift in how people saw him. Not because he didn't get first place. It was purely the act itself, the courage, the authenticity. When he finished, there was this pause. Then the source says applause, real applause. People actually looked at him differently. Teachers smiled, classmates patted him on the back. He walked home that day not as the smallest boy, but as the boy who never gave up. It shows so clearly the validation isn't always about the prize, right? Sometimes it's about that internal shift and the unexpected recognition you get for just showing up like that.
That really is the heart of it, isn't it? After that contest, something fundamental changed inside Liam. He didn't suddenly become the top student or the fastest kid, but he tasted something completely new: confidence. And it wasn't a loud, showy confidence based on applause. It felt more like this quiet, solid conviction he'd built during those nights practicing alone. He'd proved something, crucially to himself. And then the very next day, his English teacher stops him. Liam, she says, and her voice is like genuinely appreciative. Your speech moved me. You have a gift. Would you like to join the storytelling club? Liam hesitates. Of course he does. A club. Him. He'd never been asked to join anything, but he nods. Yes, he says, the word feeling kind of new. I'd like that very much. Yeah.
This makes you think, doesn't it? How often do these small acts of courage, like Liam giving that speech, just crack open doors? Doors we never even knew were there. The teacher, seeing past his old struggles, recognizing this spark, that validation was huge. And Liam's willingness, despite being shy, to actually walk through that door into something unfamiliar, absolutely critical. It really shows how one brave step can completely change your path, invite more growth.
And his time in the club, it was just as humble as his beginning. He was nervous all over again. The other kids talked fast, used big words sometimes. But he didn't give up. He listened. He watched. And slowly, bit by bit, he started sharing his own stories. The source notes his stories weren't flashy, but they were honest. And that honesty, that genuine feeling, it connected with people. They listened. At the same time, though, things at home were getting harder. His mother was getting weaker. More quiet days, more doctors. But every night, Liam kept reading to her. Then one evening, she smiled weakly and whispered, "Tell me one of your stories instead." And he did. He told her about a boy who was scared but spoke anyway, about small steps making big changes, about kindness, about how one voice can actually matter. His mother's eyes filled with tears, and she said, with what strength she had left, "Keep telling stories, Liam. They matter." And the source describes this big realization hitting Liam that night. Maybe he was learning so he could share, so he could reach people, just like he'd reached his mother.
If you pull back and look at the bigger picture here, it's such a beautiful example of how personal growth, especially finding your authentic voice, gets deeply tangled up with our most important relationships, with our sense of purpose. Liam's growing ability to tell stories wasn't just a skill anymore. It became this direct way to connect with and comfort his mom. It shifted from just a school thing to this act of profound love, of service. It really grounded his gift in something deeply personal and meaningful.
Exactly. And so the narrative says the boy who had once been invisible was slowly becoming a voice people remembered. He wasn't just speaking for himself now. He was connecting. He was inspiring, maybe even comforting others. That's a whole different level of impact, isn't it? So as time went on, Liam kept changing. He entered more contests. But the drive wasn't really about winning anymore. It was, as the source says, to grow. Every time he stood up, his voice got a bit stronger, his ideas a bit clearer. Didn't always get applause, you know. Some speeches probably landed better than others. But the key thing, he never stopped.
And that's so compelling, that unwavering internal motivation. He'd moved past needing that immediate external pat on the back. He understood, it seems, that the real prize was in the continuous improvement, the pursuit of getting better at his craft. That's what kept him going. It shows that real, lasting progress often comes from this deep commitment to the process itself, not just chasing wins. It's about, well, the journey of becoming.
Totally. And his classmates, they started noticing this quiet consistency. Some began sitting with him at lunch, not just messing around, but asking for help with their own writing. And then one girl says something really insightful, really profound. She says, "I like how your stories make me feel something. You say things I didn't know how to say." Boom. That was the moment. A real aha for Liam. He realizes something completely backwards, almost, but so important. His weakness had become his strength. Being quiet, being thoughtful, being maybe slow to jump in. And it actually helped him listen more deeply, understand people better. It let him find the words for feelings and ideas that others felt strongly but couldn't quite get out.
This really taps into that idea of compensatory strategies, right? How can something we see as a weakness actually turn into a unique perspective, a source of unexpected strength? Liam's thoughtfulness, maybe born from shyness, wasn't a negative. It cultivated this sharp empathy, this observational skill that became his superpower as a storyteller. It's a powerful flip of the script, showing how perceived limitations can sometimes lead to surprising advantages.
But as his public voice was growing stronger, sadly, his mother's health was fading. She reached a point where she couldn't speak anymore, but she could still hear. So Liam kept reading, kept telling stories, poems, short tales, things he wrote for school. He watched her smile through the pain, sometimes with tears in her eyes. It was like this silent acknowledgement of his words' power. The night she passed away, Liam sat by her bed, whispered one last story. It was a story about her, about how her quiet belief in this small, unsure boy planted a seed that grew into something strong, something that now reached way beyond just him.
That final act of storytelling for his mother, it really highlights the lasting power of her initial belief, doesn't it? It's the emotional peak of his journey. Her quiet faith was like the bedrock, the foundation on which Liam built his confidence, found his voice, and ultimately discovered this profound purpose that was bigger than himself. It cemented the idea that his voice was, in a way, a gift born from love and belief.
Okay, so fast forward years later, Liam's standing on another stage. This time it's university graduation. He wasn't necessarily the top student, maybe not valedictorian, but he was the one chosen to give the farewell speech, which is such a powerful symbol of how far he'd come. He stands there facing hundreds of people, holding just one single page. And his message, incredibly powerful, boiled down to just a few key sentences. He looks out at everyone and says, "I was once the boy no one noticed, but someone believed in me, and I believed in myself." That's how we begin to change the world, one quiet voice at a time.
And that really brings us to his ultimate transformation, doesn't it? The core takeaway. The boy who never gave up became the man who helped others rise. What's so insightful about this ending is how it just hammers home that ripple effect, the impact of individual courage, of authentic expression. Liam's story shows that real impact isn't always loud or flashy. It can be quiet, persistent, genuine. And it can inspire so many others to find their own voices, face their own hurdles. It's a testament, really, to the idea that your voice, no matter how quiet it starts, truly matters. That quiet strength can be an engine for real change.
So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you? For your own deep dive into life, learning, facing challenges? Liam's journey from basically invisible to this inspiring speaker, driven by sheer persistence and that hard-won self-belief, is so much there. He didn't wait to be perfect. He just focused on getting a little better each time, on the process. He didn't need the biggest stage. He found huge meaning and impact in quiet, real connection.
Yeah, this story really invites us to think, doesn't it? Are you maybe underestimating the power of those quiet, persistent efforts in your own life? It shows so beautifully that gaining knowledge, tackling challenges, finding your own unique way to contribute, it often doesn't start with a huge bang. It starts with a whisper, a whisper of belief, maybe from someone else, maybe from yourself. A small, consistent effort, that quiet decision to just keep showing up even when no one's watching.
It really makes you think. Here's something to ponder. What's one challenge you refused to give up on, even when it felt impossible? And maybe what small, persistent effort are you making right now that's quietly shaping your future? Or perhaps even helping someone else find their voice. Keep learning, keep growing, keep believing. Your voice matters, even if it feels like a whisper right now. It might just be the most powerful thing you have.